No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 268. And breaking today, Britain is on the brink after the horrifying murder of a 26-year-old dad in Knightsbridge for his watch, as Lawless London's Muslim Mayor Sadiq Khan issued a sickeningly muted and typical response, proving he doesn't give a damn about the safety of straight, white men. Nigel Farage lashed out.
London needs a Giuliani. The country does, I believe.
Meanwhile, the Stop the Boats effigy went up in flames last night after Slippery Starmer was completely rogered by that weasel midget Emmanuel Macron, and not for the first time, prompting Katie Hopkins to speak out. I'll tell you what she said next in my digest and reveal why the only solution for angry Brits is now none in and all out, as our safety is increasingly at risk. Then analysis from entrepreneur extraordinaire Rob Moore, host of the hit Disruptors podcast. Also coming up on the show today, Red Angela Rayner suspended by the Hard Left Unite Union as she continues her civil war with Rachel from Accounts, as new figures show the sobbing Chancellor continues to tank the economy. LBC humiliated live on air for avoiding a conversation about Pakistani Muslim rape gangs to instead blame Andrew Tate and the far right. I'll show you that embarrassing moment. And Piers demands £300,000 from Candace Owens as their war over whether Emmanuel Macron's trans wife Brigitte is a man takes a shocking twist after this bombshell court ruling. Then, in the uncancelled after show on Substack, Meghan Markle has now been rejected by her own mother, Doria Ragland, who has moved out of Prince Harry's Montecito mansion. We'll reveal what's going on with our royal mastermind, Angela 11. You can sign up to watch right now at www.outspoken.live. Of course, because it is Friday at the end of the show, so you've got to stick with us. We're going to be revealing the worst Britain in the world this week. This comes from your Union Jackass nominees across the week. So on Monday, it was Sadiq Khan. On Tuesday, Owen Jones. On Wednesday, Emmanuel Macron. And on Thursday, Lindsay Hoyle. But I have to be honest with you, Emmanuel Macron is, thank God, not British. So he's not eligible to win. So it's between Khan, Jones, and Hoyle. You can vote right now in the community tab on YouTube. I think we've already had something like 30,000 votes or something like that. Last time I looked, it's probably even higher now. And I will bring you those results and your best comments at the end of the show. But now, let's go. None in and all out. That is now the only solution for the majority of British patriots as our country is invaded by terrorists, by murderers, by rapists, by child traffickers, by drug pushers on a daily basis. And we all see how that means we are no longer safe on the streets. Last night in Northern Ireland, proof that Britain is on the brink as the Stop the Boats effigy bonfire went ahead despite police launching a hate crime investigation. And there is a very clear message here, right? We've had enough. We've had enough of your two-tier rules where it's apparently fine to burn effigies of white men like Nigel Trump and Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, but not our criminal invaders. We're sick of that two-tier approach. And I think it's just worth taking a look, actually, at the moment that effigy did go up in flames. Now, as Katie Hopkins posted on that, a handy reminder that bonfire effigies have been around for a very long time. I was a massive epileptic at this time. I wished the organisers well and promoted the events. Stop policing speech. Stop policing thoughts. Quit stealing our freedoms. Stop trying to ban stuff that offends you. Just be offended. It's okay. It's your offense. Sit with it. Own it. Let it make you rage. Eat it. Shove it up your ass. Whatever. It is yours. But look, what's most disgusting to me, indeed it's completely deplorable, actually, is that our elite class care more about that effigy than they do about the actual slaughter of a young man. And they continue to live in willfully blind ignorance that the disgusting death of Blue Stevens, a 26-year-old father, outside a Knightsbridge hotel and casino on a balmy summer night in London this week, is almost directly connected to this ongoing invasion. Now, Sadiq Khan, he is a truly evil man. Because he has destroyed the world's greatest city, or sadly, the world's former greatest city, in just a decade. And how was he rewarded by Slippery Starmer? With a goddamn knighthood. That is why we are now a joke society. And trust me, I know from bitter personal experience as a citizen of London that if you step out on the streets with a phone in your hand, you will be mugged. But now, if you step out with an expensive watch on your wrist, you'll be killed. That is a third world state of affairs. And I refuse to normalize it like the corrupt and crooked MSM have. I'm also totally disgusted, if not surprised, by Khan's muted response. Do you remember that man's utter hysteria about the death of a criminal called George Floyd half the world away? But when it came to Blue Stevens, he pretty much shrugged his shoulders. Like, this is all he posted. He didn't even name him. He posted, "Too many lives have been lost to violent crime in our city. That's why City Hall is funding community-led initiatives, youth clubs, and early intervention programs to give young Londoners hope. Prevention saves lives." Fuck you, Sadiq Khan. I'm sorry for my language, but I am so angry. Youth clubs? That's your solution? Seriously, fuck you, Khan. And then you're not going to believe it, because within hours, he was back to posting normally about funding the shockingly violent Notting Hill Carnival where 2 innocents were bludgeoned to death last year so it can continue. He wrote, I promise you, this was just hours after what happened to Blue Stevens. He wrote, "Notting Hill Carnival has lit up our streets for nearly 60 years, becoming one of the world's biggest and most important street festivals. I'm proud to step forward with RBKC and the City of Westminster to provide extra funding to ensure Notting Hill Carnival can go ahead this summer." Huh. So what he's actually doing, is funding more murders and more violence. The death of Blue has horrified actual patriots. This is one of these crimes that has really resonated across the country. Rupert Lowe declared Khan as absolutely destroying London. And Nigel Farage posted, "London is in a state of collapse. Crime is out of control." And I want you to watch now this fascinating and disturbing exchange Farage had on his GB News show last night about this very topic with the business and finance broadcaster Michael Wilson.
Same with people leaping over ticket barriers and the rest of it, which I personally would not get involved because I'd probably get beaten up. And I think similar towards it. The other thing is, I feel so sorry for him and and the family and all the rest of it. It's very, very tragic. But at the same time, do not be ostentatious about jewellery in London. It's just not worth it.
The very thought you've just said that a woman can't walk down the King's Road wearing a nice necklace. No. The fact we've
a ring it reversed.
But but it's a terrible thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's true.
But it's kind of giving up, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I think it's all pretty bleak and pretty grim, and I'm really worried about it. Can you see it turning around?
I really hope so, but it's been happening for a long time, so I think it's going to take a long time to fix as well.
Yeah, London needs a Giuliani. The country does, I believe.
So I do sense a change of mood in the air, and platitudes are no longer good enough. And thank God, a lot of the responses to what happened to Blue Stevens have heartened me, because I feel like, okay, at least other people get what I'm feeling, I guess. So I want to share some of them with you. Basil the Great posted, the man stabbed to death by a masked thug attempting to steal his Rolex outside a hotel in London has been identified as Blue Stevens, a father from Hampshire. He was killed after trying to fight off the thief in front of his partner. Sadiq Khan literally has blood on his hands. From Chris Rose, exactly 1 month since Sadiq Khan received his knighthood, Blue Stevens, a father aged 24, gets stabbed to death in high-end Knightsbridge as he attempted to keep hold of his Rolex watch. Remember, knife offences happen every 37 minutes in London under Sadiq's watch. And I just want to say on that, actually, it happens much more. Because, trust me, people just don't report violent crime in London anymore. They just do not report it, because what's the point? What's the point? The police don't even do anything. The only reason a violent crime is now reported is if the insurance company needs a crime number. That is it. Spencer Morgan posted, enough now. Caught carrying a knife, get 20 years minimum. Death penalty in incidents like this. All forms of face coverings banned on the streets. Massively tighten immigration policy. Time to get a grip. It really is. Couldn't agree more, Spencer. And Thomas Skinner, who is, by some accounts, a potential favourite to take on Sadiq Khan, or whoever Labour puts up at the next mayoral election, wrote, "This is heartbreaking. A young man in the prime of his life stabbed to death in one of the wealthiest parts of London simply for wearing a nice watch. What sort of country are we living in when you can't even enjoy the things you've worked so hard for without fearing for your life? Most of us graft, day in, day out, building our lives, chasing our dreams, trying to provide for our families. And yet we're now in a place where people would rather take what you've earned than earn it themselves. The gap between rich and poor in the UK is wider than ever. People are struggling to eat, and desperation is turning into violence. This isn't just about theft. It's about broken systems, broken opportunities, and a society that's lost its way. We need stronger policing, yes, but we also need real leadership, real change, and support for the communities that have been left behind. No one should be afraid to walk down the street wearing a watch or driving a nice car. We need to take our country back. Make it safe, make it fair, and make it proud again. RIP to the young man who lost his life. My thoughts are with his family. Something has to change. Bosh. But for me, this completely preventable tragedy brings me back to one phrase that no one in the political class is even prepared to utter, because they can't even countenance the prospect of deporting actual criminals from our country, no matter what. No excuses. So I will say it again. None in, all out. Now, Rob Moore is here. Rob, look, every now and then, there are crimes that I think really resonate because they touch on something that we're all feeling, a fear that we're all feeling. This person could be our brother or our best mate or our son. And it was just like with Southport last year and that massacre, when we thought about those 3 beautiful young girls bludgeoned to death by Axel Rudagabana. I think the death of Blue Stevens is in some ways just as shocking because it's so mundane. It's so mundane. Wear a Rolex watch now in London and you could well be killed for it. And does this not just show the decline of the United Kingdom, Rob?
Yeah, Dan. So I've been doing my research, not that you need to, because you just need to talk to people who are leaving the UK every week for Dubai, because there isn't crime there. In Dubai, you can take your Rolex off, you can put it on the table, you can accidentally leave it there and someone will come and give it back to you. And in the UK, they're killing you for it. It's ridiculous. But there's been an 80% rise in knife crime in London since 2019. Violent crime is up 33%. Sexual offences are up 53%. There's been 1/3 less funding for the police. And what Nigel said there about the Giuliani approach, I don't think maybe people don't understand, Mayor Giuliani's approach. Zero tolerance. So if you steal a sandwich at Costa, you need to be arrested and you need to be convicted. And in the UK, the police will waive any theft under £200. So you steal something for £190 and it's legal. So theft is now legal in the UK. And people don't start by killing people for Rolexes. They start by petty theft. So in London, if we want to keep our people, we need to stop crime at the grassroots, and any crime needs to be taken seriously, and people need to be convicted of all crimes. Because what's next?
I couldn't agree more. And raising Giuliani makes a lot of sense to me because it was his approach in New York that saved that city. And of course, it required a Republican to do it. I mean, Boris Johnson actually did a very good job in London, a very, very good job. And it does show you actually that political leadership can make all the difference. And when you think about Khan, right, it does show you his priorities, doesn't it, Rob? Because I heard him talk so much about George Floyd. Do you remember that in 2020? He was obsessed with this dude, George Floyd, and he was obsessed with all of the social unrest and disharmony that it brought to our United Kingdom, even though it wasn't our issue. Yet I bet we never hear him utter the words Blue Stevens. He didn't do so in his post on X. And I think it tells you something about what I actually believe, I really do, Rob, is also anti-white racism. I think the fact that this is a white, straight man means Sadiq Khan cares a lot less. Because what else could explain him within hours of the brutal death of Blue Stevens, Khan announcing the fact that he's funding the Notting Hill Carnival to continue that carnage? It's just so deeply insensitive, but I think it's purposeful. I think this shows you what his priorities really are.
Well, I thought that tweet was highly disrespectful. There was no acknowledgement of the person and his family. And to say that youth clubs are the solution to murder on the streets of London is ridiculous on another level. Look, I'm not a politician. I don't know him. I don't know if this is racially motivated. But yeah, it's been pushed under the rug. If it weren't for you mentioning his name, Dan, I bet 95% of people wouldn't have even known his name.
100%. I mean, look, all I would say is that if this had, well, actually, look, let's wait for the events. Let's wait for the events here. We will wait for the events. But I mean, I literally have looked at some of the tributes from Blue Stevens' friends and family. I mean, they're utterly, utterly heartbreaking. A woman believed to be his mother wrote on a card, "Please, I want him back." Another believed to be his cousin wrote, "This is heartbreaking. Rest in peace, young Blue. This ain't fair for a watch." And in front of his family and friends, "My heart goes out to my cousins and I'm always here if you need me. Just want to add, if you carry a knife, it don't make you a big man. It makes you a coward and shows how weak you are. And a young life has been taken before his time. When will this stop?" And no arrests have been made. So at this point, the person who killed Blue Stevens is on the loose. I mean, to me, this should be a story that stuns the country. It should be a story that leads the MSM. And I think what has happened is that it does stun people who know about it. But as you say, Rob, there's almost like this deliberate cover-up attempt. They do not want to talk about it. It's so much easier for him to talk about George Floyd than it is Blue Stevens. I think it proves so much. But just think for one moment, this guy was killed, brutally stabbed to death for his Rolex watch in front of all of his friends, his family members, his partner, they are going to be traumatized for life. We cannot normalize this. I refuse to normalize this. We must talk about it. And shame on the mainstream media. This story didn't even rate a mention, as far as I could tell, on the British Bashing Corporation or Woke ITV last night. That is shameful. And instead, what are they up in arms about, Rob? Oh, the effigy. The effigy. Now, they've never given a damn, as far as I can tell, about Nigel Farage going up in flames, about Boris Johnson going up in flames, about Katie Hopkins going up in flames. They don't give a damn about that. But all of a sudden, when it's faceless criminals, because they are criminals, Rob, entering our country illegally like that, the left think this is a hate crime and that it should be investigated.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like our priorities in this country are completely wrong. It seems like it's all about optics, you know, for the left, and not actually about dealing with our real issues in this country. And immigration is a real issue. And the rape gangs are a real issue, and they're just getting brushed under the carpet. And I'm as gobsmacked as you are. I don't even really know what to say. But how can the murder of a young father, aged 25, in, by the way, one of the best areas of London, that's just down the road. I've stayed in that hotel, Dan. I've spoken in the hotel opposite. Harrods is just down the road. If there's somewhere in the UK you think you should be safe, it's there. And, you know, if someone has worked hard and can own a Rolex and you know, make a good living, then they've paid their taxes and they've contributed to society, and you want to be safe, and you go somewhere where you think you are safe, and you're knifed and you're murdered, and then there's no news about it. Like, I don't know what's going on. So I don't have answers, Dan. I wish I did.
I know. It's utterly, utterly terrifying. And actually, I said it on the show last night, I was literally having dinner just down the road. Literally just down the road. On that exact night, having no idea that Blue Stevens was being stabbed to death a couple of 100 meters away. It sickens me. It absolutely sickens me. And it's not actually because it could be me. It's because it could be my friend. It could be my family member. It could be my partner. That is what should terrify everyone. The civil war between Red Rayner, our Ange, and Rachel from Accounts, our failed sobbing Chancellor, has ratcheted up a notch, with the two said to be at war. And they are both embattled today because of major breaking stories which prove that their political positions are precarious at best. First, Britain heading for a recession under Reeves as the economy contracted by 0.1%. That bucks all expectations and shows that her big spending, high tax approach is broken. Then Rayner has been booted out of the Unite Union. The lefties are turning on her now, which isn't going to make her happy at all. But of course, there's a bigger game plan here. Both Rayner and Reeves know that Slippery Starmer is finished. There is no way that this broken Prime Minister is going to end up leading Labour into the next election. So they are at each other's throats, and that is why Angela Rayner was sitting there so coldly as Reeves sobbed and PMQs last week, because she was the cause. She was the reason for the sobbing. But there is new reporting on this from the Daily Telegraph today, which I will take you through. Angela Rayner is taking on Rachel Reeves, and she is winning. The headline says Deputy PM may be on manoeuvres to prevent the Chancellor becoming Starmer's successor. And the newspaper, Tony Diver, reports their joint appearance before the Parliamentary Labour Party on Monday was not enough to put chatter to bed. I thought it was a slightly false display of unity, said one MP who watched the meeting unfold. It didn't feel completely normal. A minister in the room added it was very awkward and flat. No one was really listening. It is possible or even likely that the assembled MPs were thinking about someone else. Ms. Rayner's leadership ambitions. The Deputy Prime Minister has been curiously active with Bankbeach colleagues in recent weeks, even for a Cabinet Minister roped in to quell the welfare rebellion. Some on the Labour benches believe she is now on leadership manoeuvres to prevent Ms Reeves becoming the natural successor as Prime Minister. It's not going to be a simple handover to Rachel if care was to go, said one Labour MP. It has been noticed by a lot of people that Angela has been in touch with them. That's taken to have a particular meaning when we have a government that is struggling. It is with that in mind that Sir Keir Starmer has summoned the Cabinet for an away day, when ministers will be sent to an unknown central London location to digest the events of the last few weeks. All is not well on the government front bench. Ms Rayner, who declared a year before polling day that she was a socialist, is alone in the Cabinet as a representative of the Labour left. If a leadership election was held, there are few who doubt she would secure the support of the Socialist Campaign Group, the hard left faction of the parliamentary party that provided the bulk of the foot soldiers in the fight against the recent benefit cuts. There will always be that institutional friction, but they are just conducting their roles as professionals and there's nothing personal to it, a source close to both said. Nonetheless, it is understood there have been few conversations between Rayner and Reeves on tax policy since the memo was leaked, and there is talk that the government's recent decision to leave out major details from pieces of new legislation is because of fears of division between the two women in cabinet. There is no love lost between them, said one longtime political ally of Ms Rayner, who said she would see Rachel as one of her opponents for being leader. Rayner's supporters say she is a more typical Labour politician than her cabinet colleagues and has her own political philosophy about governing that occasionally feels lacking from Ms Reeves and Sir Keir. Neither Rachel nor Keir are really big thinkers, said one Labour source who has worked with them. It's not like the days of Tony and Gordon when they would thrash out big ideas together. Now, let me tell you, from everything I've been reporting, that piece is actually understated. So let me just give you the translation, okay, that hasn't gone through that MSM factory. Reeves and Rayner despise each other. Rayner had been bullying Reeves, hence her breakdown in cabinet, and there is zero chance. This is now fantasy politics suggests that there is any way that that woman replaces Starmer. It's going to be Rayner, which why it's so interesting that the Unite Union has today pulled its support. But far more serious, actually, than the intra-politics of Labour is the complete catastrophic state of our economy. Now, Ruth Davidson pointed something out very good today. She wrote, if Rachel Reeves thought a 0.1% contraction of the economy was grounds for emergency budget for a Tory Chancellor, presumably we can expect her to bring one to the House on Monday. And that is because, look at this former post from Rachel Reeves, where she wrote, GDP figures see dramatic drop to 0.1% in March. This was, of course, under a Tory government. This adds to the worries families already face from the cost of living crisis. If the PM and Cabinet come back from their away day in Staffordshire today with anything less than an emergency budget, they would have failed. And trust me, the UK is in trouble under both Reeves and Rayner. Rob Moore, host of the Disruptors podcast, who's here with me today, posted on X, the UK is on the verge of bankruptcy. National debt has hit £2.7 trillion, almost 100% of GDP. That means the country owes as much as it earns. That kind of debt fuels inflation, weakens your savings, and makes you poorer. And there's only one thing the government will do next: raise taxes. Why are people who've never run a business in charge of the economy? Rob, I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating that Reeves and Rayner are engaging in what amounts to a bitch fight when our economy is literally burning to the ground.
Yeah, they really underplay this, Dan. So, you know, they say things like, oh, it's disappointing when you have an economic shrink again. So that's 2 months in a row, by the way, and that starts to form a pattern or a trajectory. But the Bank of England have halved their growth forecast based on how Labour have performed. Disposable income is down. Unemployment is up. I can't see any growth plans in any of their policies or anything that they're putting out into the media. All I can see is more taxes, more spending. What did they pledge? Another nearly 30 billion for the NHS. We've got to get up to 5% spending for defence, which we probably need to do now. So that those two probably could be 50, 60 billion. Where's that going to come from? There's going to be more tax rises in October. More millionaires are going to leave, which means more ordinary working people are going to be paying even more tax. And we're at record taxes already, I think, I don't even know if the taxes were higher in the late 1970s, but we're nearly back there. So where's the good news? It's all a complete mess.
And what do you make of the fact that Rayner now seems to be running the government? So effectively, Starmer and Reeves, who describe themselves more as social democrats rather than hardcore socialists, have been overruled. And even though she's not officially prime minister, as deputy PM, she's setting the agenda.
Well, that worries me a lot, Dan, because taxes are going up as it is. And, you know, Rayner likes things like wealth taxes, which, forget the fact that it's rich people. It's how you stifle the growth of companies and wealthy people when you implement a wealth tax because of how complicated it is. So I think she's very left at Angela Rayner. And, you know, Rachel Reeves, to me, is not an entrepreneur. She's not a business person. That's why she's called Rachel from accounts. But she's not as far left as Rayner. And I think it would be the worst thing for the country if she took over. I really do.
And the thing is, she will take over. She will take over if Starmer goes, because Labour is currently more concerned, Rob, about it being outflanked on the left. There's this new Islamist party that has been formed by Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. I've heard that they're considering the name Hope UK, but actually lots of people would say it should be called Hopeless UK. But that means that Labour is going to be really worried about losing a lot of its Islam voters, a lot of its hard left voters. And quite significant today, Rob, that the Unite Union has suspended Angela Rayner and said that it is reviewing its entire relationship with the Labour Party. Because, I mean, Labour has always been bankrolled by the unions. And so if the unions withdraw support of Labour, potentially move over to this Corbyn and Sultana outfit, that also really means, I think, that Labour is going to have to do something to get them back. What do? They'll have to move to the left. In the meantime, our economy is collapsing. So, but I just think that's the political reality, if you see what I mean. Like, people in the MSM keep talking about Wes Streeting being the next leader of the Labour Party. Trust me, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it's the Labour members and the unions that decide the next leader, and they want to move to the left.
Yeah, I saw this news. And I did think it looked bad for Labour. It reeks of division within their own party, which obviously is not good. They do donate a lot of money, Unite, to Labour, so that's obviously not good either. And yeah, there's a lot of division within this party. It's kind of weird that, to me, Labour are just left. And then there's a really left, and there's sort of right of left. But meanwhile, like Dan, I think your point is really good, that all of this is distracting from the real work we have. Like, as you know, Dan, I'm an entrepreneur, so I have my bias. I think that economies are really important. Now, none of the top 5 people who run Labour have ever run a business. And the economy is everything, because the NHS is driven by the economy. The policing is driven by the economy. So everything that keeps us safe, our defense, is driven by the economy. So the economy is the engine of everything. And while all of this distraction and brinkmanship is going on and infighting, the economy is getting worse and worse. Everyone's getting poorer and poorer. I mean, in the end, what will happen, Dan, is Labour voters will turn on them. Because what happens, no matter how far left you are, if you can't afford to heat or eat or live, then in the end you go, well, I've got no money, so I'll vote for someone who can help me have some money. And so I believe Labour will just implode. I hope they'll implode.
Well, it was interesting, Rob. I was looking at your post about Rishi Sunak's prediction, right? And look, I don't hold much, much personal stock in Sunak, but I think in this case he was proven to be right. So you posted, Starmer will wreck Britain in 100 days. That was Rishi's warning. So far, Starmer has U-turned on key pledges, raised the tax burden, shaken business and investor confidence, gone soft on illegal migration, said little on enterprise or wealth creation, watched boat crossing surge, let public debt spiral, release prisoners early, dropped to a negative 30 approval rating. And this was the Mail front page at the time, Rob, when Rishi Sunak made that warning. And look, I never thought, by the way, I never thought that Starmer was going to do anything other than ruin the country. But at the same time, Rob, it was very, very difficult for people to hold their nose. And I couldn't hold my nose and vote for the Conservatives again. I couldn't. So unfortunately, we're maybe in a case where things have to get really bad before they get better at all. And that is going to be painful.
I mean, that's quite a CV for your first year in power, isn't it?
Well done, Starmer.
Yeah. But I mean, I agree with you. I think that Labour got in mostly because we were so upset with what Conservatives had become. So actually, they had a really good opportunity because even people who aren't generally Labour voters were prepared to give them a chance because, you know, a change is as good as the rest and something new has to be better. And it hasn't taken them long to really mess things up, like on another level. You know, there's no confidence really from anyone. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, I probably shouldn't lay out my political leaning. But, you know, I think reform probably are our best option right now to get us out of this.
Yeah, and You've been inside Reform UK HQ, Rob, and you've interviewed Nigel Farage and Zia Yusuf multiple times on your hit podcast, The Disruptors. Do you think they're on the right track? Because you know someone like me is like, oh, gosh, they're moving to the centre. I don't like it. But do you think there's a method to the madness?
Well, I know Nigel very well, and I think he's got strength in leadership that you know, maybe other current leaders haven't, which I think is important. Obviously, the problem with politics is it's kind of a popularity contest. So I think Nigel probably is more pro-business. He is more pro-low tax. He is more, I think he would be tougher on crime. Obviously, he's a fan of Giuliani. So I think all the right signs are there. Yeah, I don't think he's centre.
Yeah, I certainly hope not. But it's just some of the things he's saying at the moment worry me. I'm not going to lie about that. Breaking right now, discussed at LBC, the Labour broadcasting company that has allowed a debate about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs to turn into a conversation about Andrew Tate and the far right. Now, this all was conducted on Ian Dale's show. Now, Ian Dale claims to be a conservative, which is a joke. I mean, this guy is a lefty. He's just a lefty. And actually, it's the fact that someone like Ian Dale was going to be a candidate for the Conservatives until actually it emerged that he'd totally slagged off the constituency where he was standing in, so he had to pull out at the last minute, that I think is responsible for the downfall of the Conservative Party. But what was fascinating is on his show, he was called out live on air by the podcaster Andrew Gold in a takedown that has gone viral. Now, we're going to get into all of this in just one moment with Rob Moore, and Rob has recently sat down with Andrew Tate and Bonnie Blue in a interview that went viral all across the globe, so I'm sure he will have a fascinating take on this. But first, I just want to show you exactly what happened. So let me set this up, because it's that show that Ian Dale does. I mean, look, I never watch LBC, but I believe that it features people across the political spectrum. So you've got Ian Dale conducting the conversation, and alongside Andrew Gold, who would be considered the person on the right in the conversation, is the Labour MP Alison Hume and the author James Bloodworth. And as I say, the conversation begins with a discussion on the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. Watch.
There can't be any of the equivocation that we saw in some of those cases where the authorities essentially backed off because of what they would call cultural sensitivities and the like.
Didn't pursue this is because they thought they'd be accused of being racist if they didn't.
Yeah.
If they did.
Yeah, and I think that conversation has now been exposed, and Dame Louise Casey, she's put that out there, and that's why we're having the review. And colleagues of mine, Sarah Champion, and other people were saying that, and they were shouted down for saying it, but they were right. There's a point about the manosphere and girls feeling unsafe and Andrew Tate. We've not mentioned the horrific rise of pornography. Let's not forget that these poor girls, these victims, were just used by men as sexual objects. So the rise in pornography online and Andrew Tate talking about women and girls as just objects to be used as property is part of it, and it is used by influencers and podcasters.
Okay, let's pause there. Because did you see what happened? Did you see what happened? And did you see that this is not the strategy of the mainstream media? We have to call this out. So a conversation about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, very, very quickly, that intellectually dishonest Labour MP Alison Hume wanted to say, well, this isn't at all about the belief system that these outsiders to our country operate in, where they have a total disrespect and disregard for white women. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's about pornography. And if we talk about pornography, who can we bring into that conversation immediately? Andrew Tate. And what you'll see happen is that quite successfully, and this is what they do, and we've got to call this out, she derailed the conversation. And for a moment, you'd think that they were having a debate not about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, but rather about what a terrible man that Andrew Tate happens to be. But then Andrew Gold exposes them live on air and leaves Ian Dale speechless. Watch.
This was this whole thing around adolescence, this idea. I mean, and I do get that there are issues with the whole manosphere thing, but we have to think, I mean, why did Andrew Tate convert to Islam? Why do you think he did that?
Opportunistically
yes,
but it's the same way. Why does he say stuff about Palestine? Like, obviously he doesn't care about that.
No, sure, but it's opportunistic. So why was that an opportunity? Why was that a financial gain? Which obviously we know that's what Tate is interested in, converting to Islam.
I mean, it's a grift as far as I'm concerned. He's said lots of absurd things.
But why would Islamists or people of the Islamic faith?
No one.
Who would that appeal
really
to?
Converted to Islam, though.
That would not appeal to just English, white, whatever people, would it? That would not appeal to them that he's converted to Islam.
But why would say Andrew Tate be a representative of Islam more than say Mo Salah? I think why Andrew Tate? Why not Mo Salah?
No, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is why would he, as a commercial decision, convert to Islam? And I think we know the answer, because it's far more popular and pervasive, those kinds of views in Islam. That you've even said this. The lesson was to stop worrying about being called racist for criticising a belief system. And that was the lesson from the grooming gang situation. We've just been asked a question about grooming gangs, and we've all managed to flip it over to the far right. Look how easily that happened. That's what was happening in the police for years, and it's happening right in front of our eyes again. When will we learn from history? Name it for what it is. And fine, if you want to call the other religions out, fine. I'm a secular person myself, an atheist. Far-right fundamentalist religions do not have a space in our policy and in our country. I mean, they can be here in our country, but they cannot be changing our laws to suit their, as you said, backwards ideology.
Rob Moore, host of the Disruptors podcast. Rob, I really wanted to break that discussion down because I think it is so indicative of what happens on a daily basis in the mainstream media. It is so much easier. It is so much easier to slag off Andrew Tate than it is to actually have a conversation about the true issues of Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. And thank goodness that Andrew Gold was actually able to call them out live on air. It's probably the last time he'll be invited back on LBC, because what he was doing there was sort of smashing to smithereens that mainstream media consensus around what issues are okay to discuss.
Yeah, I thought that was distasteful at best, and very dangerous discussion, because blaming Andrew Tate or anyone in the manosphere or the manosphere for rape gangs and rape is like blaming rappers for gun crime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a diversion. It is a total diversion.
It is a diversion. And between 2005 and 2017, 84% of the convictions were Asian men, relative to these rape gangs. So that's not racist. That's just real data. And, to label someone a racist for talking about what's really going on, it is a smokescreen. And in the start of that discussion, talked about girls feeling unsafe. That's our very low conviction rate of sexual attacks. It's nothing to do with Andrew Tate or the Manosphere or anything like that. He's just the name that everyone uses, but he's not the only one. Girls feel unsafe because it is unsafe.
Totally. No, but it's like these Pakistani Muslim rape gangs were going on, by the way, before Andrew Tate even had a YouTube account, right? So firstly, they are nothing to do with him. The idea that Andrew Tate influences Pakistani Muslim rape gangs is for the birds. If you want to have a debate about Andrew Tate, fine, have a separate discussion about him. I think that's a whole other issue. And the fact that Adolescence tries to blame some young fictitious white boy for murdering a girl because of Andrew Tate is also equally intellectually dishonest. But I find it so disgusting that he is now just used as a battering ram when there is any type of conversation around Pakistani Muslim rape gangs that is just too difficult to discuss. But look, Andrew Tate very well, Rob Moore, and your interview the other day bringing Bonnie Blue, the OnlyFans, how do we describe her, superstar? I mean, I guess she is in that world, but
I think they call them creators, Dan.
Creators, okay. OnlyFans creators. Some people would say she is, the downfall of Western society. Bringing her together with a guy who, I guess would say that she was everything wrong with modern women was fascinating. I watched the whole thing. It was a completely bonkers exchange. How did it all come about? Tell me everything. Basically, I'm fascinated.
Yeah. So, Bonnie Blue's team approached me because they'd been cancelled on their OnlyFans for a stunt that she wanted to do with her vocation, which was quite an audacious stunt. Let's just put it that way. It involved lots of men and a glass box and her. And she was cancelled from OnlyFans and then cancelled from Instagram. As you know, Dan, I don't believe in censorship or being cancelled unless someone is,
breaking the law.
Breaking the law, a criminal.
Which she wasn't.
Well, no, she wasn't. It hadn't even happened, Dan. So, I was talking about maybe giving her a platform to talk about the cancelling and the censorship element. Because, she is in an industry that's one of the oldest industries in the world, Dan. And it is an industry. There's supply and demand and there's a market for what she does. And my show is called Disruptors, Dan. I interview...
And these two definitely are. They are definitely disruptors. But it's weird because... Okay, sorry, you go on.
Yeah, I'll just finish how it came about. So they approached me being cancelled, saying, Rob, we've been cancelled. A lot of people are calling Bonnie Blue the female Andrew Tate. You're the guy we want in the middle. We want Bonnie and Andrew and you in the middle. And I initially wasn't going to put it to him. Then I put it to him. Then the deal was done. Then we were out to Romania in no time at all. It all happened very quickly. And you can see it on YouTube if it's not been cancelled.
But it's weird because he, in theory, should hate her, right? Like if you believe what he has to say about what women should be. But of course, that's where there are so many contradictions with Andrew Tate, given that actually he gained a lot of his fame and notoriety by running internet pornography businesses. So that's the first thing where there's a contradiction. But then the second thing was, having watched the interview, Rob, actually there's a lot of sexual tension and flirtation going on between the two of them.
Well, I think that's more from her. I think she's like being quite forward and he's sort of pushing it away, I think. I mean, obviously you can watch it for yourself. I mean, Andrew labelled Bonnie Blue and her career as a, he credited her as being entrepreneurial and knowing who she is and making money doing what she does. And he believed that this was a result of feminism. And he sort of pinned the rise of people like Bonnie Blue. And it's something like 10% of women aged 18 to 25 have an OnlyFans account, Dan. I mean, that is a cultural thing. And I don't see it as men's fault or women's fault or feminism or whatever, toxic masculinity. I just think, we all need each other, men and women. We should become a bit more connected and not so divisive. But yeah, I think the angle he used, Dan, was that she's the result of feminism.
And do you feel like Andrew Tate is misunderstood?
I mean, I'm not a lifelong friend of Andrew, so I couldn't say that I know him as well as some people who are, grew up with him. I think he's a brilliant performer, and I think he's very intentional about what he says. If you watch the interview, he sets Bonnie up and sort of almost gets her to trip over herself. And you can see him like smiling. And he tries to do it to me a couple of times. He tries to paint me into life is this or this. So if you don't believe this, then you must believe this. And, I've done 1,350 episodes, so I wasn't going to be as easily painted into a corner. I think he's really intentional, really strategic. I think he's thinking a few moves ahead. He's a very good chess player. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he's a brilliant marketer. I imagine, many of the things he says are for effect. Here's one thing that's ironic, though, Dan. Just let me get this in. All the people accuse, Andrew Tate of, jumping on bandwagons and, blowing up his own social media by commenting on Palestine or whatever. But all these people on LBC are doing the same thing. They're using his name to, to push up, because they're not factually correct. Just, it's not Andrew Tate's fault about, the rape gangs. You just can't say that.
No, exactly. So look, he is now a favorite tool of the establishment, the MSM, the deep state. Anything goes wrong, and it's so easy to blame Andrew Tate, isn't it? And I think it is an indictment because it also shows that he's never going to get fair coverage. And I've appeared on your show, Disruptors, and have been very clear that I do think Andrew Tate has been set up by the deep state. Now, that doesn't mean that I agree with everything that Andrew Tate says. I certainly don't, especially when it comes to the Middle East. But the idea, Rob, that he is going to get any sort of fair trial in the United Kingdom is for the birds. They want to bring him down. He's like the new Tommy Robinson. He's like the new Lawrence Fox. And it's like this type of lawfare has to end.
Yeah, I really don't like trial by social media or trial by mainstream media. I think it's completely wrong. I've had some criticism, as you can imagine, for interviewing people like Andrew. I'm an interviewer, Dan, so,
Yeah, but people say, presumably, you are irresponsible because you are encouraging the breakdown of society by platforming Bonnie Blue and Andrew Tate. I presume that's what is thrown at you.
Yeah, but they don't need me for a platform. They're massively famous. If it wasn't me, it would be someone else. I don't think I'm giving them a platform. Yeah, on Disruptors, I'm an interviewer, and I tried to take a relatively neutral and challenging stance. And I challenged both Andrew and Bonnie Blue. So yeah, I took a lot of heat for that. But I will stand by this, Dan. Because, you know, as you know, when what happened with you, which I thought was very unfair, I thought that would be the best thing for your career. And it turns out maybe it has been very good. You know, your YouTube is blowing up and you've got your own independence now. And I'll always support someone's right for free speech and a fair trial. And because of social media and mainstream media and all these agendas, maybe he's guilty, maybe he's innocent. I don't know.
But he's not been found guilty of anything yet.
Well,
he's not been found guilty of anything yet.
No, he should have a free, fair trial. And now that's completely impossible. Completely impossible. How could any jury go in neutral and unbiased?
Totally.
So and this is the problem of social media and mainstream media.
But you know, when Andrew Tate quite rightly raises the fact that, you know, the BBC was harboring a paedophile in Hugh Edwards for decades as their main news presenter, right? Like he announced the late Queen's death. That follows on from Jimmy Savile, a paedophile who they harbored for decades. I think he has a totally fair point. It's like the selective moral outrage from an organization like that is sick, and it's sickening. And I don't think it's possible for Andrew Tate to get a fair trial. I don't think it's possible for Tommy Robinson to get a fair trial. I don't think it's possible for Lawrence Fox to get a fair trial. I don't think it's possible for Russell Brand to get a fair trial. That is the issue that we are now facing. And I appreciate the fact that actually you have allowed Andrew Tate to give his side of the story. My God, you certainly don't get that from the mainstream media. Breaking today, an astonishing development in the case of Emmanuel Macron and his trans wife, Brigitte, with the women who claimed that the French First Lady was born a man being cleared of defamation. Now, this has resulted in, well, I guess a huge blow-up in the growing feud between Piers Morgan and Candace Owens on this issue, with the uncensored broadcaster raising the stakes of his bet with Candace over this to $300,000. So let me take you through the exchange between Candace and Piers after this news was revealed last night. Candace wrote, "Piers Morgan owes me $150,000 and I am ready to collect. It was never defamation. It was a witch hunt. Legally speaking, the only proof Brigitte Macron is a woman is her word that she is. There is tons of proof, however, that she lived as a man before becoming Brigitte." And our very own Father Calvin Robinson, totally behind Candace on this, he posted, "Seems a lot of people owe Candace Owens an apology." But Piers Morgan just ain't having that, because he responded writing, "We only have your word for it, that you're a woman. As for your ludicrous and very hurtful to her and her family claims about Brigitte Macron's biology, today's court ruling, as you know, is irrelevant. So let's make it $300,000 if you can afford it." But is Piers Morgan really right to say that this court ruling is irrelevant, given that Brigitte Macron and her lawyers have admitted this, by the way, is completely devastated by the decision? So I'm just going to take you through exactly what happened in this French court. Here's the report. 2 women convicted of defaming French First Lady Brigitte Macron by saying she was born a man were today sensationally cleared on appeal. Judges sitting at the Paris Appeal Court on Thursday ruled that Amandine Roy, a 53-year-old clairvoyant, and Natasha Ray, 49, and a blogger, had every legal right to make the sulphurous allegations. Both had claimed they were subjected to intimidation by the authorities as ultra-protected members of the Paris establishment tried to cover up a state secret. Lawyers for the 72-year-old Ms. Macron, in turn, indicated that she was devastated by the development and would be taking the court to France's Cassation Court. Ms. Macron is currently returning from a state visit in Britain with her husband, so is not in court today to hear today's judgment. Ms. Roy and Ms. Ray had appeared on a 4-hour YouTube video in December 2021, in which they claimed that Brigitte was in fact born as a baby boy called Jean-Michel Chagnoy in 1953. This is in fact the name of Brigitte's brother, and Ms. Macron was called Brigitte Chagnoy before her first marriage. The defenders also claimed that Brigitte's first husband, André Louis Aujar, had never actually existed before his reported death in 2020, aged 68. A sitting judge in Normandy originally fined the two women the equivalent of £1,700 each, after finding them both guilty of libel. Following earlier appeals, Roy's fine was reduced to £850, while Ray had £1,300 of her £1,700 fine suspended, meaning she only had to pay £400. Now, neither will have to pay anything, but here's the key line. They will be able to repeat the allegations against Ms. Macron. Maud Marion, the defence barrister for Roy, said, "We're acquitted," while Francais Danglehut for Ray also expressed great pleasure in the judgment. So look, this is huge. As far as I can see, it is a major victory for freedom of the press. It is a major victory for freedom of folk like me and folk like Rob Moore of the Disruptors podcast on YouTube to be able to have these difficult conversations and not be controlled by the deep state. And actually, I wish the British courts would look at this and allow some real journalism to take place. So, Rob Moore, firstly, who's right here? Piers Morgan or Candace Owens? Because this is a serious bet now. $300,000 is on the table.
Dan, you love to put me in these positions. So I don't know that there's any proof that Brigitte Macron is a man. And I did some research to try and see if there is actual proof. And I couldn't find any. And that is important if that's the topic. I agree that we all should be able to speak freely. And I think it depends, this YouTube, this 4-hour video, how it was, if it was suggestive or if it was raising questions, I think that that's one thing. If it's accusatory and if it's defamatory, that's something else. Dan, you may not have me back on your show again, and normally we agree, but I'm actually going to go with Piers Morgan on this.
Good, we'll argue.
All right, well, let's argue then. Here's why. Because there's no proof that she's a man, and that's the basis of their bet. And Candace Owens, I am just with you.
I mean, look at those
free...
pictures, Rob. It's not proof, but come on. Come on.
I'm with you on free speech, and I'd fight free speech to the death, probably.
Yes.
But Candace Owens has gone a bit on the conspiracy on some issues. Until there's proof she's a man, I'm with Piers Morgan.
See, my view, so number one, my view on the whole conspiracy thing is I think, honestly, if you look at the past 5 to 10 years, and I mean, we've spoken about this a lot on your podcast in the past, Rob, if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, yesterday's conspiracy is tomorrow's fact. So I actually take it as a compliment now if someone describes me as a conspiracy theorist, and I think Candace Owens feels the same way, actually. But on this story, what is so fascinating is that there would have been so many ways for this to be cleared up. So many ways for this to be cleared up. And she's never done so. She has never done so. Why are sources close to the US president, Donald Trump, getting involved and trying to get Candace Owens to tone down her coverage if there really is nothing there? Why do they care if there's really nothing there, if there's really no truth to this? Then you look at their relationship in the first place anyway, Rob, and you're like, this is completely effed up. Like, she was his teacher. Okay, so it's like a pedophilic relationship anyway. That's really weird and that most people would think was socially unacceptable. And then, did you see these pictures, Rob? These pictures the other day when they were getting off the plane and they didn't realize that the door had opened. And she's literally ripping him to shreds, slapping him. I mean, at the very least, you must admit that there is something seriously wrong and effed up in this relationship?
Okay, so I don't know how relevant it is, the gender of the original gender, the sex of the husband or wife of a politician, because I think that's their business. Until it affects affairs, that's my view. You do what you do behind closed doors. You be with who you want to be with. That's my view. Now, yeah, that slap was something else. I mean, that's obviously very bad optics. It makes him look bad, and yeah, it's not good. Like that's abuse. She whatever has abused him. She slapped him. It's not good.
And what about, Rob, like, if we just turn the tables on this for 1 second, okay? So just say your daughter was 15, okay, 15 years old, and she had a male teacher who was 40. And within a year, they were shagging, they were in a relationship. I mean, that would be considered, that would be considered grooming, wouldn't it? And it would be considered completely unacceptable. And that is what happened. I mean, that is what happened because it was 1993, I believe, when they first met. And Brigitte Trogneux was a 40-year-old drama teacher. Emmanuel Macron was a 15-year-old student in her class. The relationship developed when Emmanuel was 16. Although they claimed initially it was platonic and centered around their interests like literature and theatre, and it only actually became romantic once he turned 18. I mean, come on, Rob. Look at the complete outrage when there was a very, very similar situation here in the United Kingdom between Philip Schofield and one of his young staff members, the young runner on This Morning. This woman was his teacher. I mean, is it different? I'm just putting the question. I'm not actually trying to do moral outrage. I'm just putting the question. Is it different because he was the man and she was the woman? Does that change the dynamic in some way? Because I don't think it would be considered socially acceptable if it had been a male teacher grooming a 15-year-old female student in that way.
Wow, Dan. This is Friday afternoon. Come on. Okay, right. I mean, there's black and white in law, isn't there, around the legal age to be able to have sex. So that is the black and white. So that's that part. If it was my daughter, I wouldn't like it one bit, just telling you. So I'll be honest about that. And yeah, if it was the other way around, I think it would probably be more of a scandal. I agree.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, what do you? I mean, it is fascinating but given you're operating in this, independent media space, it is fascinating, isn't it, to see how, I guess, there are these two schools developing on the so-called right. I mean, I guess I would view Piers Morgan actually as lefty, but a lot of people put him in this anti-woke group, and yet I'd argue he's much more traditional in his approach. Right? He follows, I guess, the more sort of establishment line, the mainstream media line, the sort of let's trust the expert line. And then you've got Candace, who is doing, I think, really brave stuff. As I say, I don't agree with her on everything, certainly not on the Middle East, but she is pushing boundaries. And both are thriving, actually, in this independent media space at the moment. What do you make of it?
Well, I like independent media because it challenges mainstream media or social media. So in a way, social media is kind of becoming the new mainstream media in a way, and all mainstream media is pumping media through social media. And, my show is called Disruptors. And in the business world, you have these startup entrepreneurs and businesses that disrupt the big, lazy behemoth businesses that aren't serving us well anymore. You need disruptors. You need challengers. And so independent media, people who have not being controlled, who can, even if I don't agree with them, Dan, if they're independent, I think it's really good. And it's the only way. It's like with capitalism, you have free markets where, you go in and offer products and services, and the market decides on the price because you've got competition and the market decides if there's demand for it. And it's the same with independent media. It comes and challenges mainstream. Mainstream media needs to be broken. You know, that stuff you said about, you know, all these paedophiles who have been working in the BBC for decades. And it's not just the two you mentioned. I mean, that's completely wrong. Candace Owens, I don't agree with everything. I agree with some things. Andrew Tate, I don't agree with everything. I agree with some things. Piers Morgan blocked me on X.
What was that for? Did you challenge him over the COVID madness?
Well, no, I mean, he completely U-turned on that, and he was terribly, I think, misinformed and like, you know what he's like.
But he was awful over that whole period. I mean, really awful. But why did he block you?
So. Because Lawrence Fox called him out on my show, and then I published it on X, and but I don't have I'm pretty cool not agreeing with everyone. I think actually, totally. Do you know what? Here's somewhere I'm going to end on something that hopefully is a bit positive, Dan.
Good.
I think we all need to learn how to disagree better.
Yes.
So, you know, I we're friends. I shouldn't judge you if we don't agree. 100%. I shouldn't judge others if we don't agree. I need to be challenged. You need to be challenged. So if the world learned to disagree better, I think it would be a much better place.
I think you're so right. But I do think it's something that the independent media does much better, actually. Like if you compare Joe Rogan's debate between Dave Smith and Douglas Murray, which lasted a couple of hours and was fascinating, was very respectful, actually. Compare that to some ludicrous 5-minute clash on woke ITV where they're purposely trying to make the person on the right look like an idiot. You know, like that. I think we are better in this space because we have the time to do it. Rob, just quickly, who do you have coming up on Disruptors? Who can we look out for in the coming weeks?
I just interviewed Ruby Wax actually yesterday. She's amazing.
Her. She's a big time lefty now, isn't she?
If I just interviewed everyone on the right, Dan.
No, look, I will watch that. I like her. her. I'm not saying you shouldn't interview her because she's a big time lefty. I'm interested by that. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And we have got some other big guests coming up, but I can't say those right now. But obviously it'll be there on Disruptors.
Absolutely. And you must subscribe to Disruptors on YouTube. Rob Moore, have an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, we are about to reveal, because it is a Friday, today's worst Britain in the world this week. But first, your feedback. Well, actually, let me just tell you the nominees first. Monday, Sadiq Khan. Tuesday, Owen Jones. Wednesday, Emmanuel Macron. He is not eligible because he is French. And Thursday, Lindsay Hoyle. And Cosmic Lover 293 said, Lindsay Hoyle is drawing level with Khan, I believe. They were heckling Nigel Farage in Parliament, butting in every time he was speaking, and at some point told Nigel to shut up. Come on, Hoyle. Labour lover, do your bloody job. You're getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds for. Valerie Cheryl Irvine 4048 said, as for Hoyle as the Speaker of the House, his control of Parliament during PMQs was appalling when it came to Farage. I deeply question his integrity and ability to control the Parliament, or did he allow it deliberately? Does he have an affinity with Starmer, the weak? That is not his role. Cody Lloyd said Sadiq is dangerous because his actions have and continue to have devastating consequences. And Pokes.h said Sadiq Khan too wrapped up in his own archaic culture to understand British values, and the results are in. With just 6% of the vote, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, for his treatment of Nigel Farage. With 8% of the vote, the Guardian columnist Owen Jones for his meltdown on Piers Morgan. But wow, this is our biggest landslide yet. Over 30,000 votes and 86% of you say Sadiq Khan is the worst Briton in the world this week. Wasn't even close. Landslide winner. And boy, I agree with you. Hope you have an amazing weekend. If you're in the United Kingdom, the heat wave is on. So enjoy it because it won't last long. However, if you do want some more content, stick around because I'm moving to Substack for the Royal Uncancelled After Show with Angela Rayner. Today, Meghan Markle has now been rejected by her own mother, Doria Ragland, who has moved out of Prince Harry's Montecito mansion. We're going to reveal what's really going on. So at this stage, we come off YouTube and Rumble to continue the royal conversation on Substack. www.outspoken.live is the address. Please do join us there. Substack, such an important free speech platform. As I say, hope you really rest up. Hope you get some time in the outdoors, the great outdoors, if you are watching from the United Kingdom. But we are back live with you 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Monday. Hit subscribe right now on YouTube and Rumble. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.